What's up, guys? 5 things pros are doing that you aren't that help me get my KD up to this season, 5.5 on the last 100 games. So hope you guys learned something from the video. Sub if you're new. Number 1 is how to take fights against multiple enemies at once. I'm going to show you guys a quick clip of me going in 1 versus 3 and killing all 3 in the squad. Take a look.
Uh-oh, Sam, you're all in, you're all in. Close. Hold on, Sam, hold on. Out back, there's 3 more of them.
As you can see, I make sure to peek them one by one at a time, because you as a player have a much higher chance of winning 3 separate 1v1s than you do one fight that is 1 versus 3 or 2 versus 1, so on and so forth. The way that I take these duels over time is I make sure that I'm not caught dueling multiple enemies at once, and if I am, most of the time I'm going to run unless I have no option, because it's not an optimal duel for me. The pro players know what duels are optimal and which ones are not, and they should always try to take the ones that they have a higher chance of winning the fight with. Now that seems like a simple concept, but it's very difficult to put it into practice. So wrap your frame of mind around taking fights that you can win consistently, not dueling multiple enemies at once, and think about every single duel you take, how you can set up during the fight to make sure that you have the most optimal situation the most consistently. For example, here's a fight that I did it wrong, but I still was able to win because we were cleaning these people up. You'll see me land in this group of people and be in line of sight of 2 of them at once, where they should have killed me, but luckily one of them was caught plating, so I was able to turn the fight around. But that's an example of how not to do it. That's how you're gonna get yourself killed. Here's another example of a good multi-fight that we took, where it was multiple opponents on us at once, but we only dueled 1 at a time. Thing number 2 that high KD players and pros do that you don't, and this actually helps you be better at number 1, it's breaking line of sight properly and taking breaks in between duels, or baiting players so that you get the first shot. If you take a look at this clip, I start getting shot in the back and losing the fight, but I quickly break line of sight, and this was the patch where throwing knives were much better, so obviously with worse throwing knives now, you wouldn't want to throw the knife, you'd want to shoot the player instead. But I break line of sight, come back around the corner and chuck the throwing knife and 1 shot down him. Or, you know, I could use my gun next time, take the time to plate up and then re-peek it. But breaking line of sight quickly and then re-peeking it a little bit later is a great way to catch players off guard who are trying to chase you. It's how you can turn fights, and most importantly, it's how you get the first shot off. Getting the first shot off in gunfights is really, really important. And you can bait players into jumping into you by making them think you ran away. A lot of players will just mindlessly run after a person without thinking that they could be baiting them, or they might be around the corner, they might just be stabilizing, right? And finding ways to get the first shot off in a lot of these fights will be the difference maker, right? Because a lot of these guns do have specific time to kills, in that their time to kill is faster than another, but that really doesn't matter as much if you're able to get the first shot off, or catch people off guard, or catch them into sprint to fire, where, you know, the sprint to fire time is obviously, for those of you, most of you probably know this, but your average player might not, is how long it takes for your gun to come down from sprinting to actually shoot the first bullet. And if you've already ADS'd on a player and shot first while they're doing that, you're going to be able to kill them much faster than they can kill you in a lot of these situations. And the best way that I found to do that is to break line of sight, act like you're running away, put a plate on, re-peek it, or listen to see if they're peeking you. And it's just a great way to make sure that you're consistently getting that first shot off, because that really, really is important. The third thing that high KD players and pros do that you don't is pay a lot of attention to the minimap, right? Being able to look at your minimap while you're in gunfights sounds like a really simple thing, but I promise you, so many players just don't do that, and they haven't learned how to actually read the map, right? What does the map actually tell you? Well, in Rebirth, when you kill somebody, they actually ping on the map, so you can tell where players are and how to set up for your next duel the second that you get a kill, or if you have a UAV up, you can read what angles to take so that you're consistently taking that one-on-one, right? We talked about this in part 1, where you don't want to be stuck taking 2-on-1s where there are 2 people shooting at you and you only are 1 person. There's no way you can compete with that time to kill, right? So you can read what angles to set up on, and most importantly, how to set up crossfires and kill boxes, right? The number one thing that you don't want to do is run in the middle of an angle where people can shoot you from two sides at once. That's such an easy thing to avoid, right? So say there's somebody on your right and there's somebody on your left. The last thing that you want to do is run straight down the middle, because now you're stuck taking a war on two fronts. And just ask Germany how that went, right? You will always lose that. You will never win. So wrap around the left side and try to take the duel on the left first or the right. It doesn't really matter which one, but don't go in the middle and get yourself killed by being shot at by two players at once who have crossfires on you. You will never, ever win that. And the best way to avoid that is to read the map properly by seeing where enemies are. Also, look at how many squads are left on the top right corner of the map, right? If you see, say there's 5 or 6 squads left on Rebirth Island, and there's a bunch of dots firing at Prison, a bunch of dots firing at Nova 6, and a bunch of dots firing at Control Center, and you're at Living. You know that there's 2 people fighting at Prison, 2 teams fighting at Nova 6, and probably 1 team left at Control sniping at the team at Prison, because that, based on how many squads are left, that's what it tells you. So what fight do you want to take? Well, the smart thing to do would be to go fight the people at Control, because you're not running into multiple other teams fighting in the center points of the map. That way, you really know where you can rotate and you can take the most optimal duels. That's all this game is about. It's about taking optimal duels, not inoptimal ones. And if you really start thinking about that in everything you do, how to set up to take the optimal duel. In the mid fight, where can I position and run around away from bullets and stuff, whether you've just killed one person, you're running from the next team coming to clean you up. Where can you set up for where it's optimal for you? And you need to learn how to apply that into every single thing you do in the game. And reading that mini-map is one of the best ways to set up those duels and win fights before they've even started. Speaking of winning fights before they've even started, learning how to rotate before the storm gets on your heels. Taking position in Warzone is so important, especially if the storm is going to be on your back. A big mistake your average player makes so often is they think that like you have time to wait for the storm to start closing in before you rotate, and there's a lot of situations and times where that's just not true. I like to rotate the second I see the circle. Because if I can set up in a good position before a team gets there and they have to push into me, I'm going to get the first shots off. And most importantly, again, we talk about those crossfires, right? You don't want to fight a war on two fronts because you always will lose it. Well, the storm, to me, I count that as a player. That's fighting a war at two fronts, because the storm is pushing you in. You can't run backwards. You have to run forwards. So you're getting pinched, right? And you want to avoid, and again, you can't avoid it 100% of the time, but even if you get ahead of it 50% of the time, you'll start to see a big increase in your KD, because you're actually setting up before fights start. And instead of being the one getting chased by the storm, you're the one holding the kids getting pushed by the storm. And you'll find yourself getting 1 to 2 more kills generally each rotation just by doing that. And it's such an easy thing to do that people are just late on. And I know a lot of the better players out there probably don't need to hear that. Like you guys, it's not really a tip for you guys. It's more so a tip for your average player, where I'm telling you, I mean, you guys probably see it too. They never do this, right? They never rotate. They're always late on these things, and they get lazy and they get caught out for it, right? So being ahead of the curve, setting up pre-fight, especially if the storm is going to be on your back, is so essential to actually winning, right? So make sure that you're doing that. Rotate before the circle starts coming in, not as it's coming in. And tip number 5 that a lot of the best players do that your average player just doesn't. It's have good loadout coverage, and I cannot stress how important this is. I know a lot of you like meta players out there, people probably above about a 1.5K to or higher, have a good loadout and know what its strengths are, but your average player just doesn't. Like, I see a lot of these people who run like long range AR and a sniper, and it's just stupid, right? You want to play to your loadout strengths. For example, a lot of the big thing I've been running is the Blixen SMG and the Kar 98 recently. My SMG gives me short to medium range coverage, and my sniper gives me medium to long range coverage, right? And I can fight at any range and consistently win, right? Whenever I'm about to get in a close range fight, I'll have my SMG out and my throwing knives as my lethal to instantly down any target that I finish with my SMG, to then run and stabilize. And I've got my sniper to take those medium to long range duels where people will usually be using the Cooper carbine. But I see my IRL friends all the time. What they'll do is they'll have their Cooper carbine out at point blank range, which I guess the gun is good enough to use up close, but you know, they'll have an SMG on their kit and they won't pull out their Type 100. They won't pull out the guns that in that situation really flourish. And you see this happen all the time, and these people just don't do it. So understand what your loadout is designed to do and take as many gunfights where your loadout is strong as you possibly can. For example, if you're running longer range guns, then you want to take the duels at the longer range. And that sounds like a simple thing, but people don't put it into practice. You need to be thinking about this every single gunfight you take. Where can I set up each fight so that my gun has the advantage over the other player? That is going to do it, ladies and gentlemen. 5 things pros do that you probably don't at home. I'm going to make a more in-depth guide for actual 1v1 scenarios in terms of like what moves you can bust out to actually outplay people. So leave a comment down below requesting which one you want, and the most liked one I will do. Streams are every day on this channel about 10 or 11 a.m. EST, playing some Warzone, playing some Overwatch. So be sure to come through, check that out, and hit that subscribe button if you're new. Click on the screen now to check out the previous Warzone video, and I will see you guys next time. Peace out.